It may look small, but this little circular saw has a few tricks up its sleeve. Saws don't have sleeves, it doesn't make much sense. And here we have the HS005G. The ZB you can see on the box means Z is for tool only, no battery, no charger, and B is, well, you'll find out in a second. This is the tool that I put the post up asking what's inside this box, and everybody really got into that. I got more comments than I've probably ever had on a post, and it was really frustrating, some of you. About 3 of you got it right in the end, but there was one person that got it right first, obviously, and they were also the only one who got it on their first attempt, and that was, now I don't know how to say this, PASG1, PASG1, PASSG, and then the number 1. Congratulations, mate. You beat everybody else. No one else really knew what it was until they got a few clues and hints and stuff, but you got it first shot. So well done. That was your prize. Just me mentioning you. It's a cracker, I know. Anyway, let's get this thing out of the box. Speaking of the box, the Japanese box there, just a standard cardboard box, no glossy print, no teal coloured box like you'd get in most of the world. Just a simple, basic cardboard box. There we go, isn't she cute? Especially with this big fuck off rafter hook on the top here. Doesn't actually come with that, I'm just messing with you. I put that on there just to see what it would look like and just to see if it would fit, and it doesn't really. You can only get one screw halfway in. I took this off the full size 40 volt in the background there. Now this tool, as far as I am aware, is only available in Japan. If you wish to get one, you will have to get it in from Japan. There's a couple of sellers that I buy from down in the description. If you want one, check those out now. It's gonna sell out. There's not many available on eBay at the moment. If you're scared of big price tags, don't bother looking. I don't want to hear about how much it costs. But if you want one, that's where they are. While I've got you all here as well, I'll just say that over on my other channel, Builds and Stuff, I'm going to be putting up some of the old videos from this channel, Tools and Stuff, some of the ones that haven't done so well, or are building videos that don't really fit on Tools and Stuff anymore. I'm going to chuck them over on Builds and Stuff. So if you wonder why you've seen a whole lot of videos that you've actually seen before in the past, that's why. Just going to put them over there and free up Tools and Stuff a bit. Just keep this as a tool channel. Now this is a 125mm or 5-inch circular saw running on the XGT 40V system. Why would you want a 5-inch 125mm saw, I hear you ask? When you could get this 185mm 40V XGT Makita saw for basically the same price. Now the prices are going to vary, of course, depending on which part of the world you're in. But this cost me less than this cost. But this can do a few things that other one can't. It does one very cool thing that I've never seen on a cordless circular saw before. That doesn't mean they don't exist. Feel free to tell me if there is one somewhere. I'm just saying I haven't seen one. And that involves these two knobs at the front here and some other little magic, which we will get to after I've told you some of the other features. The B on the box is because this is a black model. A lot of guys seem to like the black Makita stuff. Well, here you go. This is another black one. And interestingly enough, it's not made of PA6 nylon with glass fiber in like so many of the power tools these days. It is actually polycarbonate. So, even better, I think. Feel free to discuss the pros and cons of polycarbonate versus PA6 nylon down below. I just keep looking at it. It's so bloody cute. Anyway, there is one issue I can see straight away. The battery works on a different orientation to the 185mm. As you can see, it comes out the side here and has to sit down below. On this 40V 185mm model, it's on a completely different orientation, so the batteries can keep coming out and coming out and coming out towards the camera there and get as big as they want, and they'll still always fit. This one, however, has been designed a bit like the Hikoki ones, where they've stuffed themselves up and you can't get anything too big in there. Any future batteries are not going to fit, including the recently released 5 Ah. Let's take a look-see, shall we? Is that going to fit in there? I don't think so. Crashing on the base here. There's not enough depth. But you can fit it on if you pull the base down shove said battery on, it does fit, it does work. Oh, I got it all dusty already. Crikey. But you now have, of course, lost quite a bit of depth in your cut, which, yeah, is a bit shite. So you're going to have to run this on the smaller batteries, the 2, the 2.5 and the 4 amp hour, all of which fit fine at the full depth setting. Now, as well as the fancy bit on the base that I'm yet to show you, it also has this button here. Bit like the Hikoki or Metabo HPT, we have 2 speed settings here. Wow, that sounds fast. Now that's 6,000 RPM, and if we drop it down to the other one, looking at 4,500 RPM, so still pretty damn quick. We've got on-tool storage here for changing your blade. It is made in China, not Japan. It has a maximum depth of cut of 47 millimeters. I'm going to go and cut some 6x2s of this in a moment, and we'll compare it to the 185 millimeter. And I was going to put it up against this old school Makita because I thought it was 125 mil when I ordered the other one, but turns out it's 140, so really I should be comparing it to a 136, else people are going to complain. But it's got this thing on it, whatever that does, and maybe we'll have a look at that later in the video. But as for this one, I think I'm going to put a 2.5 amp hour battery on it and take it out now and do a few cuts, and then I'll tell you about the fancy base. Wow. Well, that cut felt nice, but I do have some issues with it, which I'll get to in a second. But first of all, before I scratch it all up, I've got to show you this base. Look at that base. It's almost like mirror finish. It says it's aluminium, but that's the shiniest damn aluminium I've ever seen. It's like chromed aluminium. It is a work of art, and it's a shame that it's going to get all scratched up, no doubt. It's almost worth buying for the base alone. But speaking of the base, it is not square. By not square, I haven't checked everything on it yet, but I just made that cut and I could see that it didn't cut it square. So I've had to adjust it. I have set it square now. I'm going to have to adjust a screw underneath this here, which I'll explain later what that is, and just push that grub screw up so that this stops now at the right place, because it's going past being square at the moment. Past being square. That's right. This saw can go 15 degrees past being square, in the opposite direction to what a saw would usually bevel. Did you just hear right? That's correct. The base of this saw can bevel in both directions. Ho ho. Barely feels like it's cutting. So good. Except that's still not right. Catching on here, that's why that end bit's a bit iffy. She's all good now. Now, because the full depth of cut is 47 millimeters, you can do what I just did then. Chuck it on your sawhorse and not worry about going through your sawhorse and not having to adjust the base of the saw. It's just set to cut framing timber every shot. When it comes to beveling though, not so good. So how does the saw feel to use? Well, it cuts like butter. It's a very powerful little saw. It's 36 volts of course, 40 volt max, and so it has more power than the HS005G, which is still regarded as the best Makita 165mm 18 volt saw, and a saw I have used a lot in the past, but this one much more powerful than that. And how does it compare with the larger 185mm blade in the back? Well, the one in the back is much bigger, it's much heavier. So it has advantages in cutting straight lines essentially. It's much harder to cut a straight line with the smaller one here because it's very light tool and it's also got a very short blade. by short, you know, this is your cutting distance, so it's much easier to wiggle that than it is a big blade. The bigger the blade, the easier it is to cut a straight line, essentially. As long as you start straight, much easier to keep it straight. This thing being so light, it can easily just sort of jitter in your hand and get a little wave going, or just any little bump or anything it might hit on the timber, or, you know, a little bit of dust, and it's easy to just, oop. So a little bit trickier to get used to, that's all. You've got to concentrate a bit more because it doesn't have that weight and this bigger blade to just drive straight through when you're going on a long cut. I haven't ripped anything with it yet. It'll be interesting to see how much power it's got with ripping compared to these other two. I don't really want to waste any timber and rip anything I don't have to, but hopefully in the next few days something will pop up that I need to rip. It's a well thought out tool, this one. You've got this funny little bit of plastic on the side here above the motor. That's so you can stick it like that and it sits nice and flat. So it makes it nice and easy for changing your blade. There's another thing that makes it easy for changing your blade that some of you will have already seen. And that is, there is now no base there. No base plate like this, no base plate like this, just open. That's because I have removed part of the base plate. Holy shitballs, Batman, I hear you say. I've never seen that before. Well, it's not too common. And why would you need to do it? Well, in conjunction with another little trick this saw does, it helps you cut out something like a floor. If you have to repair a floor, replace an old ply floor or chipboard floor that's swollen up or anything like that, you can cut around the edge of your room with this saw and get right up against the edge. Now that is a brilliant feature as far as I'm concerned. I've had to cut out floors before and it's a pick of a job if you haven't got the right tools, and this is the right tool for that job. And I wish I had one of these years ago. So this piece of the base comes off pretty simply. It's got just two knobs, one on each end there. They're captive sort of bolts there, screws. Just pops off. Then the second part of the trick, you need to tilt this so that you can get it on the right angle and sort of basically undercut the wall where the flooring is that you want to take out. Not only is this good for floors, of course, but you can also get into the corner of walls and ceilings, anywhere where you need to flush cut hard up against the wall. So to bevel this base in the opposite direction to the way you would normally do it, you have two knobs. We have one at the front and one at the back, so that's good. Locks front and back. Most just have them on the front. These other two saws sitting over here only have them on the front. So normally you would tilt like that, bang, tighten her up, bang, tighten her up. There's your 45-degree bevel there. But if you want to go up against the wall, you need it to bevel the other direction. So you loosen these off, spin it back. It'll only go to that point there. Now you need to lift the main part of the saw just a bit. Seems to need to go up a little bit, but that's okay. If you're cutting out flooring, it's only going to be around 3/4 of an inch, 19mm thick, so we'll lift that up a little bit, lock it in place. Gives us this gap here so that we can tilt the base up towards here. You'll then see there's a small grey lever in the front here. We then pull this across. We can now tilt that way. So I am now tilted to about 10 degrees. To go any further, we're going to have to shift this base again. So we'll just come up a little bit more. Let's go to about there. Still give us enough to cut our floor. Pull the dial, whack it down, so we're now on 15 degrees. Lock in place. And that is a very cool feature. Now when it stopped raining, I'll go outside and make a mock-up of a floor to show you close up how this works. But if you look at that now, that is about level, and your blades on that 15-degree slant, so you can run this hard up against the base plate of a wall and undercut the flooring, which is very cool. You will of course have to plunge cut into the floor, which is easy as well. Just hold up the guard, plunge her in, and away you go along your wall. Now this guard is polycarbonate, not metal, and this guard here is also a plastic, not metal. The other side here, That's aluminium, but they've just painted plastic on the front here to make it look like metal, which is a little bit of a shame, but helps keep the tool nice and light. And you're not going to be throwing this tool around. This is a bit more of a precision tool than these other two over here, both of which have metal top and bottom, all aluminium and all magnesium guards. So put that front back on the base there now, and then we will loosen this, and then we can just tilt it back up. That lever there automatically pops out, and now we're back to 0 degrees. Speaking of getting things square, this tool has a few more adjustments than a lot of circular saws have. Not much in the way of adjustment on the HS003, but this HS005 has a lot more, although with the lighting and this reflective surface it kind of looks black on the screen there and a bit hard to see. But there's a lot of screw holes, as you can see. So not only do you have ones for getting the base square to the blade, but you also have adjustments to get this edge parallel with the blade. So you can tweak the whole base like this to get everything squared up if something gets out of whack. It's good that you can square everything in every direction with this saw. It's something I've heard people complain about on circular saws and table saws. The blade's not running true and straight to the rest of the table or the base plate. Now that fridge has just kicked in and it sounds rather noisy. The safety trigger here is like a combination of the old 18 volt and the new 40 volt in the background there. It is a push-in one, but it's angled so that you can basically just slide your thumb down and it slides in. So you can go like that, or you can just slide down like that, which, like I say, is basically a combination of this one where you push down and this one where you push in. You've got to sort of push it in with the side of your thumb. And I think this is an improved combination of the two, where you just slide down and in it goes. Quite good. There are a lot of features I am liking about this tool. At the front you've got the blade lock, of course. You've got an area there to attach an optional rafter hook. It didn't come with a rip fence, which I find slightly disappointing. It seems to be a popular trait now with Makita. This one and the HS003, neither of them came with a rip fence. And they must cost about 30 cents to produce, so it seems a bit of a shame not to just chuck one of those in the box each time. I do have several of them, so it's not a big deal, but you know, not everyone's going to have them kicking around, and having to go out and buy one the day you realise you need it would be quite annoying. Other accessories you can also get is the dust port thing here. Screws into a small screw hole there for attaching it to your vacuum. The depth gauge when you lower the base plate is a little hard to read, all being shiny silver like that, but not a biggie. I never ever trust those anyway. Has a light on the front down here. It triggers off. Can you hear that little click? There's a separate little switch just for the light inside there. So the light's down here, straight onto the blade, straight onto where your mark's going to be. It's a little bit tricky. You've got to really lean over and look down through there because there's not a very big gap. I've only been using it on the high speed so far. I haven't cut anything big with the lower speed yet. In the manual, all written in Japanese of course, it says, I do believe, that the slower speed is for finer work and the high speed just for quickly whacking through stuff. But I'll try cutting some framing size timber with the slow speed just to see what difference it makes. I like the way the battery looks sticking out the side there like that. It looks good with these 2 and 2.5 amp hour batteries. Once you put the 4 on, it starts looking a bit silly, and as for the 5, well, yeah. When you do put a straight guide or rip fence in, there is this knob, of course, to tighten it up. It only has the one. On the 680 you have one at the back as well as the front, so that you can get a more precise guide, and you can put them on get an adapter and put it on a track, that sort of thing. Speaking of that, I'm wondering if this has something along those lines too. Let's just remove the battery here, and I will pop this up just to see if we can make it a little bit clearer. On the back of the plate here, we have 2 threaded holes. We also have an interesting looking groove here and a couple of notches and stuff taken out. Almost looks like a battery slides along there. Obviously it's not a battery, but that sort of system, there's something there. I don't know what it's for. I can't find any information online. Every time you try and search for these, everything's in Japanese. There's nothing in the manual saying anything. But it almost looks like you can connect something on the end here, maybe to run it on a track or rail. I'm not sure. If anybody knows anything about that, please let me know down in the comments. Be interesting to know if there is something else that goes on there, some sort of attachment that makes life easier for something else. Because this could be a very handy all-round tool, this. Because even though it looks so small, it still does full depth cuts of Euroframer. As long as you don't want to do beveled cuts, of course, because you won't get through the 45mm with a bevel on this thing. I haven't actually checked what the bevel depth is yet. I'll do that again when it stops raining. I know a lot of guys like the black tools over the standard colour, so let me know what you think about that below. And just so you know, the HS001 is a 165mm saw. The HS002 is a 165mm saw, but with the AWS. This one, the HS003, is a 184mm, or you can get up to 190mm blades in this, and it has AWS. The HS004 is also a 184mm saw, but the base is different. It comes with a grooved base, so you can stick it straight on a track. Then we have the 005, which is this model, the 125mm, and then if you get the HS006, it's basically the same as this, but with AWS. AWS being the Bluetooth system for starting up your vac. So far the 3 different sizes in the 40 volt, top handled circular saws, and 6 different versions available, 2 of each. Also with the 40 volt circular saws there is the RS001, which is the rear handled 184mm saw, or 7 1/4 inch, and the RS002, the one so many people are asking me to review, the 260mm, or what's that, 10 1/4 inch rear handled circular saw. I am hopefully going to review that one soon. Let's check some weights here. 2.2 kgs. That's good for a circular saw. And the big one, how much is the 03? 3.6. 1.4 kgs heavier. That's quite a lot. I didn't just lose control of my bladder, that was an app on my phone. So that's almost the same as strapping an impact driver with a battery on it to the side of the smaller circular saw. There's a pointless bit of information for you. And the 18 volt 680 165mm blade, which is a pretty light saw. It's a nice little saw to use. 2770, so nearly 2.8 kgs. So it's about 600 grams, or about 118 volt 6 amp hour battery heavier than this little cutie. I used to think this 165mm saw looked small, but look at this little cute thing, far out. This blade looks massive compared to that now. So we can get a close-up look of how this saw works cutting out a floor. I'm just doing a mock-up here with a subfloor, a floor, and a base plate of a wall. So that cut, as you can see, has left us a very nice finish along our wall base plate to our floor. This might also have a skirting on it depending on what you're doing, but you can get it flush with the bottom, which is very, very cool. And the undercut makes it very easy to attach your next bit of flooring without any issue of the two edges butting up against each other and pushing each other apart. I did this at the full depth of cut that you can do on that 15-degree angle, and as you can see, it's come in about 6 millimeters, quarter of an inch into our subfloor. Not a huge deal, but if you were doing this, you would of course set it a bit closer to the exact measurement of your floor. But yeah, super happy with that. Very, very handy feature for a circular saw. Right, let's wrap this up. Now, apologies, I may sound a bit nasally, a bit shite. I've been crook for the last week or so. I filmed most of this footage a while back, but I haven't got around to editing it. So yeah, I've had the flu, so let's just have a quick summary of this. It is a very cool little tool. Look at all this shit on my bench, damn it. I haven't really got the energy to clear it all up properly, but we'll just make do. It's a very cool tool, capable of many things. It comes with a 35 tooth blade, which you will have seen me rip some timber in the video. Left a nice smooth cut, ripped dry timber pretty good. Don't know how good it would go on sopping wet timber. It doesn't rip as good as the 40 volt 184mm saw, as you'd expect. That one has a bit more grunt, so just because they're both 40 volt doesn't mean they've got the same motor. The motor in here much smaller than the 184mm saw. As you probably saw on the video, the blade guard, just like the blade guard on the larger 184mm saw, they still catch. Makita haven't quite nailed good blade guards yet, you know. You go to start a cut and it sort of just jams up and you get that stuttery effect, and so you've got to start your cut by holding this all the way up so that it doesn't bloody catch. It'd be nice if they could get one that just slid up smoothly when it hit the edge of the timber. One day maybe. It'd be good to get hold of the 165mm, the HS001G or 002G, and put that up against the HS680. Maybe we'll do that in a future video. I'll put a link to all of the 40 volt saws down below if you want to buy one. The 125mm, the 165mm, and the 184, all in 40 volt, down below from Japan. That's the only place I think you can get the 125s and the 165s at the moment. Who knows if other territories will sell those sizes in the future. But currently this is my favourite tool. I don't know how long that'll last, but it's not too often my favourite tool isn't an impact driver. But this tool with the removable front here, very, very cool. It's super light, super easy to just grab and do a few cuts with, powerful for its size. It's just a great, cool little saw. So thanks for watching. Let me know down below if you want to see more of these sort of oddball Japanese style ones. They do a lot of cool smaller saws and grinders and things like that. Hikoki are just releasing a very cool metal cutting saw which comes with a chop saw base attachment, which looks, it's just a super cool idea. Might do some more videos with this saw in the future. Did I do a bevel? I can't remember if I filmed a bevel cut. Might have to miss out on that one. I need to get a video out. I'm crook. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on another one soon. Yeah, tools out. I'm going back to bed.